So we're sitting here today with Bordner Home Improvement, and we've got a list of questions asked by the general population on things you want to know. And so we are sitting here with Brian and getting ready to ask him a bunch of questions and looking for truthful and honest, transparent answers. So, Brian, would you just tell us a little bit about who you are, who you're with, and what you do?
So I'm Brian. I'm going on 5 years with Bordner Home Improvement, and I'm classified as a design consultant.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to sit down and get down to business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. As a homeowner in need of stucco siding services, how can information on cost help me make an informed decision about my stucco siding project?
As far as the costs go, like every company's going to come in at a different price, obviously. With stucco, most of your materials are going to be the same, but with stucco, it's whether you're going conventional or acrylic, it's an art. When we go out and we try to match someone else's, it's very difficult, and the reason being is it's no different than painting. So when you do paint, you and I could both paint the same thing.
Yeah.
We could even get down to where the brush stroke is.
Sure.
But even the brush strokes themselves are going to be a different pressure, a different technique.
Yeah, right.
And that's going to show when you do a stucco job.
Mm-hmm.
So, not that I know, but there's stucco artists out there.
Yeah.
That when they drive by, they might be able to depict who did that based on what they see or the style.
Interesting. Yeah. That's cool. Let's talk about that same kind of thing, information from potential problems. Like what are some things that I might need to know as a homeowner as I'm going into a project like this?
So a lot of what we do a ton of stucco repair,
Mm-hmm.
and most of that's in congruence with roofing. There's not proper flashing that's installed. The thing with stucco is obviously it's concrete. So if there's any problems, you're typically not going to see it until you rip everything off. So that's what we see a lot of is, when we see, hey, there's no flashing here, there's probably some issues going on behind. And then the next thing you know, there's, from the outside, everything looks great. But then we tear everything off and there's mold, mildew, rot within the framing of the house itself. And we've even seen it a few times where the inside of the house has started to show some type of growth as well.
Yeah. Wow. I'm a homeowner in need of stucco siding services. What about comparisons with other siding options? What are some things that could help me make more informed decisions, and the other maybe options that are even out there?
There's probably 5 total off the cuff that I can think of. So one of them is obviously wood. Wood is not going to be your least expensive by any means, and it's also the highest maintenance as well. So there's a lot of maintenance that's required. It has to be painted a lot more often. Then you have to deal with the wood rot and things of that nature. Then you have a vinyl, and then within vinyl there's different ranges of quality. Then you have James Hardy would be a good fiber cement option. Then obviously stucco, and then above that would be like a stone veneer or something along those lines.
Sure. Okay. So can you talk about maybe each of those just a little bit and I don't know, benefits or things that kind of maybe steer clear of or good things to know?
In this area, it's difficult to promote vinyl. And what I mean by that is your typical Dutch lap or your traditional siding. And the reason being is because of the hail that we get in this area.
Sure.
So there's no support for it unless you get like a form fitted, which is not that common. You could go, I guess you can go vertical, but you're still going to have the same types of issues as far as that goes. At the end of the day, it's measured in millimeters.
Sure.
So it's super thin. And if we get any type of decent sized hail in this area, which happens often,
Right.
it's going to damage it.
Yeah.
Insurance they don't value the cost of vinyl the way that it should be. So there's definitely some differences there, and homeowners end up having to pay a lot more out of pocket
Sure.
on the back end of things with vinyl.
Yeah.
With James Hardy, it's much more conducive for the Midwest, and the reason being is because it is hail resistant.
Okay.
It's also fire resistant as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of qualities there as far as that goes for this area.
Yeah.
It is going to cost a little bit more, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a one-time job.
Sure. Good deal. Can you explain how, we're going to move on to the second one now. Can you explain how transparency about costs and pricing can build trust with homeowners when it comes to putting on a siding, stucco specifically?
Yeah, so it's really just an industry thing itself. Anytime you're doing any type of remodeling work. So with siding, with stucco, it could be tearing off the existing and then not seeing any problems until you do rip it off.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies, they don't necessarily put the value or the cost associated with what that would be.
Sure.
So they can kind of leave it out in the open, and then they can charge the homeowner, whatever they want.
Yeah.
Whereas here at Bordner, we're going to put it like it's going to be claused. That way, if we do come across, we're already on the same page. Like, yeah, we didn't know, we forgot our Superman glasses.
Right.
No X-ray there, but so we can't see. But once we do pull it off, we can see, and we're going to bring the homeowner out and show them as well. Like, hey, this is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Want to make sure you see not only the same thing, but obviously the costs that are associated with that as well.
Awesome. Great. What factors typically influence the cost of stucco siding services the most, and how can a customer get a clear understanding of price ranges?
With siding on cost, a lot of it's going to be like I said earlier, the material is going to be relatively similar. It's going to be the labor. I
Sure.
can go out and find somebody that just freshly started putting on stucco,
Right.
and they're going to be less than what somebody that's done it for a while and knows the ins and outs and
Right.
how to go around corners and things of that nature.
Yeah.
With the expansion joints. So it's just going to be the final finish or the quality of the work that's obviously going to be different. And it really just boils down to whether or not you believe or you can trust in this company to do it with what you're, I guess, the quality of the work that you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. How can stucco siding companies, Bordner specifically is who we're talking with, effectively address potential problems or drawbacks associated with their services in a transparent manner?
This would go back to what we were talking about earlier with the roofing and some of the kickouts or the flashings that are required. So anytime you have a roof that meets the side of a house, you're going to need some type of step flashing, obviously. And we see it quite a bit where the stucco is literally sitting on top of the shingle.
Wow.
So when you're ripping off that shingle, it's going to damage the stucco.
Yeah.
So you really need anywhere from like a 2.5 inch gap where the stucco starts. So that way, if there is any damage to the roof itself, it's a separate facet as opposed to incongruent with.
Yeah.
So we see that a lot. We see companies not flashing at the corner towards, again, where you have the roof meets the side of the house. You always have gutters that run along there. There's a little piece of flashing that probably costs $3 and maybe 5 minutes to install.
Yeah.
And these companies aren't doing it because it takes a little bit more time or a little bit more effort. And that's where you're getting the damage from the water that's going in between the gutter and the stucco itself, causing that damage in behind the stucco.
Yeah.
I was at a customer's house last week, and they literally have a hole right there where that spot is that they didn't know about because they don't get up. They were now elderly, so they're not going to get up on a ladder and look for that.
Yeah.
Because somebody didn't want to spend $3 on a piece of flashing in 10 minutes to do it.
Sure. Right. Incredible sometimes what, people won't or will not do.
Right.
In the context of stucco siding, what types of problems or situations may come up during the middle of a stucco siding project?
During the middle of a project?
Or maybe even the whole range of the project. I mean, you know the scope of a project. I mean, maybe just talk us through what some potential problems could be as the project is moving along.
I think probably the biggest one is going to be what's going on behind it.
Sure.
Like I said, everything's looks hunky-dory on the outside.
Yeah, right.
The issues are going to be, is it is the substrate or the substance behind that the stucco is applied to. Was that done properly? If not, then you're going to have to include more substrate,
Sure.
which is going to bring in cost, additional time, labor. So that can all add up pretty quick.
Yeah. Why is it important for a stucco siding business to provide honest reviews of their products and services? We'll leave it at that.
Okay. No, I guess I struggle with that question because
Sure.
this industry is not known for doing that.
Okay.
I would say, with Bordner, our philosophy is a little bit different.
Yeah.
When I show up to someone's home and I tell them it's going to take 60, maybe 90 minutes, depending on depending on them and what their options or selections are, or how long it may take them to make those selections. I get kind of like a deer in the headlight look, like why would it take me that long? And it's so we can give you an education, because most people aren't in this industry, so they don't know a whole lot about it. And we don't know what we don't know.
Right. Right.
So our philosophy, whether it's stucco or any other product, is to go into a home and give you an education. So if and when it does come time for you to do that project, you can make an informed decision as opposed to, trying to pin the tail on the donkey, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Good. That's good. So as far as cost and pricing goes, what are key factors that influence the cost of a stucco siding installation, specifically here in the Midwest in Kansas?
One of them is obviously going to be the labor, how well they do it.
Yeah.
The other is going to be the material itself, and it's not just the stucco. So you're going to have, anytime stucco is applied, you're going to have 2 layers of what most of us know as tar paper on top of like a chicken wire, very similar to this.
Yeah.
Okay. And that provides the support for the first layer, which is called the lathe or the lathe, however you want to pronounce that.
Right. Tomato.
But within a certain area, you always want to have what we call expansion joints. And most people are familiar with a sidewalk. They always see the lines in the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And the reason you need those lines in the sidewalk is because the only thing we can guarantee you with concrete is that it's going to crack. But those expansion joints allow room for the concrete to expand and contract. Sure. Which is huge here in the Midwest, because we're going to get sub-zero temps and we're going to get north of 100.
Yeah, right. So does that, because of the, I guess, I don't know if they're extreme temperatures. I mean, I guess if it's really cold to really hot, does that affect the actual material itself? Like as it's going on, once it's up, like, does it change the composition of it any? If you were to, let's say we're in a I don't know, San Francisco, where it's like 75 degrees year round or something, you know what I mean?
That's
like
perfect temperature for stucco.
Yeah, right. Of course.
So we're getting ready to come up on winter months. We're going to have to put a pause eventually on installing stucco.
Sure.
Because the temperatures won't allow for it to cure properly.
Okay.
So we put a pause, and then obviously we get our list that we hit, whether it's March or April or sometimes May.
Yeah. Okay.
Depending on what the weather's doing.
Sure. Cool. You talked about this a little bit already, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. Maybe you'll answer it a little bit differently. But so what are some common stucco siding issues specific to our climate? You did just touch on that a little bit. But how can homeowners identify potential problems with their existing stucco siding before they decide to replace it?
You honestly have to, unless you know about the industry, which again, most people don't. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have someone who is an expertise in stucco, such as Bordner, to come out and do an inspection.
Sure.
Maybe, there's going to be times or certain areas that we can get to that you may or may not be able to get to.
Yeah.
Our eyes are trained a little bit different,
right,
than somebody that, stares at numbers all day or stares at a screen all day.
Yeah.
Or stares at people all day.
Right. So, unless it's like falling off the side of your house, like how would just somebody know? Like, I guess you wouldn't, unless you know what you're looking for. Is that?
You'll know I would know ahead of most people.
Sure.
When they would know, but it's going to be obvious when you see like discoloration or, something along those lines.
Okay. Got it. I guess let me ask this first. Are there different types of stucco siding materials?
There's 2 different ways you can do stucco.
Okay.
One of them is conventional.
Okay.
Which is going to give you, it's more about the aesthetics that you're looking for.
Sure.
So the conventional is going to be, once it cures, then you can paint it.
Okay.
Once that's done, we do recommend an elastomeric paint. So it's got the elasticity to it, so it can expand and contract within the confines of the stucco.
Sure.
The other is acrylic, and that will give you basically three, sometimes four different variations as far as the texture goes. Most people will do some type of a contrast between, what they'll do on the side of the house versus the trim.
Sure.
Just to make it stand out, give you a little bit of a contrast as well.
Got it. So then when like taking those different styles and materials, again, speaking to it in the climate that we're in, what are important factors that homeowners should consider when making those comparisons between the options, and how do they know to choose the one that's right for them?
I don't know that the climate here is necessarily going to change the cure time for anything. I mean, most of the cure time, it's going to depend on the weather.
Sure.
But the longer, I will say the longer that it cures, the better.
Yeah.
So if you could hold it for 6 months on a conventional stucco without it being painted, then that's not going to be a bad thing.
Sure.
On the acrylic, I mean, the second layer, which is the texture, is going to come with whatever color that you choose. So one of the things we do is we'll go out and we'll get a sample to bring to the homeowner, maybe one or two samples to bring to the homeowner, and then get them to sign off on which one.
Sure.
That they agree that is the color that they want.
Right.
But one thing you have to consider too is within the different textures, the different sides of the house. So you always want to see what it's going to look like in the sun, what it's going to look like in the shade.
Yeah.
Because it is going to look possibly like a different color depending on what color you pick.
Sure.
In the sun versus in the shade, and just the tricks that our eyes play on us.
Yeah, it's really good to note. Yeah, for sure. So then as far as choosing the one that's most suitable for, if I'm trying to choose one, is it really just more of a preference type of thing then? Or is, I don't know, my house and where I'm located in the city a factor on any of that?
Location's not really a factor.
Yeah.
It's really just a purely aesthetic type of thing.
Okay, great. This question's kind of like a best in class kind of best practices question. So would you be able to provide insights into the best stucco siding practices and materials that are well suited for this region? So considering factors like weather conditions, energy efficiency, stuff like that.
I mean, weather's going to be probably the biggest factor.
Sure.
So as long as it's above a certain temperature, then, or if it gets below a certain temperature, you don't want to install it, because then it's not going to allow it to cure properly.
Okay.
I want to say, you can't quote me on this, but I want to say it's 40 degrees.
Yeah.
So anytime, it could be 40, 45, something like that. But anytime it gets below that, it's not going to allow it to cure properly.
Okay.
So we always want to make sure that within the cure time that we recommend, which is in that 2 to 3 weeks time frame, that it's not going to hit below that 40, maybe 45 degree.
Yeah. Okay, great. So how would a homeowner go about finding reliable reviews and testimonies to be able to choose a company to do a project like this?
You just go to Google and type in Bordner reviews.
Great. Yeah, perfect. No, I mean, that's simple enough. I mean, do you see other companies doing stucco? Are they keeping up with their reviews? And have you noticed any of that? Have you seen any of that?
I can't say that I have.
Yeah. Or maybe they're inflated, or I don't know.
And that's probably the difference with us, is most of your other options as far as stucco goes are going to be not necessarily your truck and a trucks.
Sure.
But it's almost like a taillight warranty type thing. Once the taillight's gone, the warranty's gone.
Right.
If you call them back in 2 years because there's an issue, good luck getting them back.
Right.
But as far as a company, there's not a whole lot of companies out there that will do stucco.
Yeah. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time again to be with us today and to answer these questions. Really appreciate it. Great information. Hopefully you learned something today. If you want to know more, absolutely reach out to Bordner Home Improvement and see what they're all about. They're doing a lot of great work. Thanks for tuning in.